I'd like to welcome everyone today to a special session of Lunch with Layne with my good and great friend and legal idol, Dean Galigani. Dean has been the local president of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, what we call FACTL. He's also been on the statewide board of FACTL, was also a board certified criminal attorney. And there's so many accolades here, Dean. I'm going through them here. You are also on the board of directors for the 8th Judicial Circuit Bar Association. Is there anything that I missed? I know you do so much more than that, Dean, but I think that's a good start here. If any of my students, if you want to know somebody that's very, very connected with everything that's going on legal, Dean is the individual. And just to give a little bit more background, Dean was my supervisor when I started my career at the Public Defender's Office. Dean and I met Dean's been a long time, 1999. And Dean and I have worked together since that time period. And certainly now, even if I have a complex legal issue or question, I contact Dean on that. Dean, I just want to appreciate it, everything that you've done for me during my life, particularly my legal career. And what we're trying to do in our office is pay it forward, okay, with our students.
I'll send you a bill.
Yeah, I know you will. Actually, send it to John Adcock. Yeah. My director, he'll make sure it gets taken care of. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So let's start out here. Again, Dean, I could go on for hours and hours about how great and wonderful you are and how important you've been, certainly in my legal career.
That's not.
Very good. Yeah, let's get it right into these questions here. Where did you go to law school?
UF.
And why did you choose UF Law?
You know, I went to undergraduate here, and I had a couple sisters that went to University of Florida. And, you know, I wasn't even sure that I wanted to pursue law, but when you get a degree in political science and you graduate, you look in the job market and there's no job listings for political scientists. You know, and I always loved constitutional law and that kind of, those kind of issues, bigger issues. And so I went to law school here and wasn't quite sure when I was in law school what I wanted to do in terms of what area of the law. And then my last semester, or last year, I guess it was, and it was fairly new back then because we're speaking about ancient history now. There was an internship available at the Public Defender's Office. And I didn't know anything about the public defender, didn't even know it was an elected official, wasn't real sure what they did. I enjoyed criminal law more than the other areas of law I was studying, seemed to have more societal impact, and fighting for the rights of people is important. And so I wasn't sure really what I wanted to do, and I became an intern at the Public Defender's Office. And at that time, back in, you know, what was this, late 80s, probably 88, 89, something along those lines. The crime wave was enormous and there was huge number of cases. So when I interned at the Public Defender's Office without much training or anything, which is much different now. They have a great program of training people before they do anything. But back then it was really helter-skelter. The budgets were tiny for the number of cases we were handling. So when I walked in as an intern, they basically gave me a box of cases and said, here you go. And, you know, it was a good way for me to learn. I don't know that that's the way you should train people. But it forced me to go to court. And as the moment I stepped into a courtroom and started arguing a case, that's when I immediately realized this is what I want to do. I'm pretty good at slinging it around, Layne. So it was a good thing.
Excellent response. Excellent answer. I really enjoyed that. What you're basically saying, it was kind of trial by fire, right? You were given caseload, you went in there. Now, some people, the career resonates with these people. With you, Dean, it seems like criminal defense, criminal law just resonated with you instantly, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I had no notion of that before taking a case and working it up and stepping into a courtroom. Much more my style than, you know, let's say corporate law or tax law or, you know, something where you kind of have your head in a book all the time. And I appreciate the work those people do because I can't do that. I'm much better trying to convince a prosecutor or a judge what to do, or convince a jury of something.
Then when you were Layne supervisor.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and try to convince you to behave. And so,
Full-time
and,
job, I know.
it also requires you to be pragmatic. Depending on the case, some cases you're gung ho and fighting for everything. Other cases, you're mitigating and trying to talk reason into a prosecutor or a judge. So it requires you to have many different facets. Some people just have one style. I think my style is to do whatever it takes at that moment, to represent my client to the fullest. And so that's why I was attracted to that. It required me to kind of use different talents to get a good result. So that's what I was suited for.
Well, Dean, and yeah, everything, having gone to trial, really a second chair, for you sometimes, and taking care of little tidbits, the technical stuff on cases. I've seen you in front of a jury, and as far as I'm concerned, you're second to none in front of a jury. Legal skills are really amazing. I hate to call it really argumentation with prosecutors, but what you're getting into, persuasion, let's call it persuasion. And one thing, an accolade that I heard about you, and I want to pass this on to you, is that prosecutors have told me the one thing we like about Dean is he doesn't just come in and say, oh, my client's completely innocent, throw out the case, whatever, right? Of course, you always look for those things, but you also look deeper and you say, look, my client has some substance issues. We need to get these addressed. He's got some psychological issues. We're going to get, some counseling in place and treatment. And I think it's that package, right, that is really important, because you're trying to rehabilitate the person, right, as opposed to just locking them away, throwing away the key.
Yeah, well, number one is what your client needs and wants, but two, and just as importantly, who's on the other side. Some prosecutors don't listen to any of that.
Yeah.
There's prosecutors that I don't care about, emotional issues, mental health issues, substance abuse issues. They broke the law, and here's what should happen to them. And then other prosecutors are very willing to listen and accommodate certain things for needs. And then there's some cases that you're just offended that they were even filed, that you want to fight tooth and nail from the beginning.
Do you want to mention names, Dean, for our students? Obviously, right. No, it's true though, and you do work. To be fair, I've always said this. We have an excellent slate of prosecutors here, and I love working with the team here. You do too. You're obviously very well respected. You do a lot of work out county too, right?
Not as much as I used to.
Okay.
When we were in the public defender's office a long time ago, we were in Levy County and Gilchrist County, and that was a different world for both of us. But we learned a lot.
We did learn a lot.
And that was kind of the same thing, that, we didn't have any supervision out there. We were on our own, and we were young lawyers. And so we learned a lot, trial by fire. And so when I first went into private practice 20 years ago or so, I handled a lot of cases out there because I had a lot of connections out there. And, there was a lot of referrals from law enforcement and clerk's office and people that I'd handled their cases as a public defender. I still do a lot of work out there, but not as much. Right now, we have so many serious cases here in Alachua County that we can't go very far. We generally stay in the 8th Circuit, which is Alachua County and the surrounding 5 counties, because it's a good place to practice criminal law, generally speaking, compared to many other areas of Florida, Central Florida, Marion County. So it's much easier to work out things here. Juries are great here compared to many places in the state, because the universities here, we have intelligent jurors. They don't have closed minds, and they'll listen to argument and defenses. And so we're kind of honed in on Alachua County. It's unusual right now because with the pandemic ending, we have a year worth of cases that haven't been able to go to trial. So when I think about, when I say we don't do much out of Alachua County now, it's because we've got trial after trial lined up for the next 6 months. And we got a bunch of murder cases and life felonies and stuff like that, one after another lined up. So we don't have much time to do anything right now, Layne, except hunker down and get ready for the next one. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for telling us the reality. I mean, if you're getting referrals from law enforcement to a criminal defense attorney, that says a lot. Okay, that means that people trust you to do the right thing too.
Well, let's be real about it. I represented a lot of law enforcement officers too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Tell everybody, yeah, exactly right. You know, but for the grace of God, and you have helped so many people out of tough situations. Your advice. I want to go from what you're explaining, and you've walked us through everything. You had your early career at the public defender's office. You were obviously very appreciated, very talented. You rose to the supervisory roles, right? You were head of the Levy office, for example, right? Levy and Gilchrist, the outlying counties. When I came, you invited me. You were head of the, what was it, the Division 3, I think, right? Yeah. You know, when you're working in Gainesville.
Felony here in Gainesville.
Felony in Gainesville, exactly. So you've been obviously appreciated for your supervisory skills. You left the public defender's office, is that right? Was it 2003, 2004 to pursue a private career?
Yeah, it was 2003.
2003. And can you tell us a little bit about private career, how that's gone for you? You know, government attorney versus, yeah, private practice.
You know, it's a hard thing to describe because a lot of it's the same work, but it's, I don't want to say it's easier, but you don't have the number of cases, obviously, is the biggest thing. And you're able to spend a lot more time with each client. You're able to spend a lot more time with each case. And, you know, that job, the stress was the numbers and constantly having to move cases or else you would be overwhelmed. Here, the stress is people pay you a lot of money to get a good result. And so, you know, there are stresses in this job privately as there were as a public defender. But there are different stresses, but you still have the same stress of doing the best you can for your client and getting the best result. So private practice has been nice. Obviously, it pays better than the public defender's office. At the same time, your salary is not guaranteed like a government employee. So that's a different stress. And
COVID comes along, right?
And COVID comes along, and you know, and on top of that, when you're a public defender, you don't have to worry about paying your rent or bills or malpractice. All that's taken care of for you. So on the one hand, public defender had the benefit of everything was taken care of, and all I had to do was practice law. Private practice, I'm you know, part lawyer, part businessman, and I don't have the skills of a businessman, quite frankly. That's the difference.
Well, obviously you took advantage of me. No, I'm kidding. When I was your associate, you know, there, I'm joking, of course. No, Dean, they're two subset, right, of completely, differing fields. Obviously you're doing something right. You're in business. You're a firm. You're coming out of COVID. As far as students to look you up a little bit, can we get your website?
Yeah, it's GaliganiLaw.com. So my firm has the original name of my last name, Galigani Law Firm.
That'll be Galigani.
Yes.
Law.
Yeah.
.com. Thank you. No, thank you for the information. A lot of our students are debating, you know, government attorney, right, where you get the stable paychecks like you talked about, right, versus private practice where potentially you can make a lot of money, right? But as you said, there are downsides to that as well.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no,
on this issue, you know, there are plenty of great private criminal defense lawyers and private lawyers that never were public defenders or prosecutors. But there's no better experience than having one of those two jobs right out of law school or at any point in your career, because you are forced to litigate. And no matter what the area of law is, whatever you're in just about could end up in litigation of some sort. And it's so the people that have that background tend to be more comfortable in a courtroom setting, more comfortable arguing evidence. So anybody that ever wants to practice criminal law or wants to be a civil trial attorney, I would always recommend, if you have the ability to do it, you don't have to do it long. Yeah. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Get that skill set in, right? And you're that much more marketable immensely.
once you start, you're immersed in it. They're going to hit you with a lot of new stuff, and you're going to have a lot of cases. And so you don't have to do it long. But just the comfort, ancillary to criminal cases, sometimes we'll have a family law issue or something. And when I watch family law attorneys, I usually can tell the difference when there's a family law trial or a civil trial. I can usually tell the ones that have been in courtrooms through criminal law versus those that have not. And like I said, there's great civil attorneys, family law attorneys that never did government work and are just great attorneys. But generally speaking, over the spectrum of everyone, the guys that have that and gals that have that background really do well in a courtroom setting. When you're a lawyer, you always have to look far ahead and think, is this going to be a trial or not? And you can't be afraid of that.
Thank you. That's excellent advice. We had discussed, Dean, kind of a segue into that, organizations that you belong to. I think I did a little intro at the beginning. What do you recommend for our students to get engaged in? Be either pre-law or law. Do you have any recommendations out there?
Jody Kaysen, our old friend from the public defender's office, who is now a magistrate, she, through the 8th Judicial Bar Association, has a mentoring program. And I think you're probably aware of that.
Yeah. In fact, I had talked to Jody. What we were trying to do, and let me go ahead and tell you this, and I'll tell it for the benefit of our students, the story, what happened. We were wanting, because we only have 4 attorneys in our office, obviously we have many pre-law students that want to shadow, right? And these are undergrads. They want to shadow cases. They want to see, what's going on. And certainly we try to do everything we can. But the idea was we do a very specific area of student legal issues, landlord tenant, right? Criminal defense, but we're talking MIPs, those kind of things. So we wanted to do an undergrad mentoring program. Jody was doing the as I understand, with UF Law, right? Which is great. We wanted the same experience. We were trying to get it off the ground, and thankfully, at I believe Sherry Fine even did an announcement for us, at the 8th Judicial Circuit Bar Association. We're trying to get it off the ground, which is great. Then COVID hit. And this is where I'm asking private attorneys, and thankfully, if hardship with COVID and everything has just been unbearable, but if anything has come out of this, challenges create opportunities. What you're doing today, the outreach with our students, right, via Zoom, recording this, putting it on YouTube, we greatly appreciate you sharing your experiences. My students are really looking for opportunities. And the pre-law, if we can ever get this, cranking up again, I'll be happy to work with Jody or whoever, if we can put a structure in place, that would be wonderful. They need exposure outside our office, right, to a diverse group of attorneys. And I think that's what Jody's doing, with law students. And we've got probably a lot more potentially pre-law students, I would say, than even the law students, that are interested in thinking about it.
And I'm not real familiar with what the pre-law stuff is, because back in our days of dinosaurs, when we were in school, there was no pre-law. There was no track of undergraduate that made you go to law school. You could have any background and get into law. So most of my teaching and mentoring is over at the law school. Every year I teach at the Public Defender Prosecutor College, which is for young prosecutors and public defenders.
You're training them.
Yeah, that's a great program. So I really like that a lot. And I've also judged, for the pre-law students, I have judged their mock trials, and some of them are really talented without having any background at all. And that's really the thing I noticed over since I went to law school, was how much better people going to law school are prepared for law school, and 2 people that are in law school, how much better they are and how much more prepared they are as lawyers coming out of law school.
They're brilliant, aren't they, these days?
No comparison. Fortunately, over the years, we've moved away from, elderly male professors with bow ties, trying to emulate the paper chase and embarrass students with hard questions and, thinking they're at Oxford and all this kind of stuff with actually more practical things. Don't get me going on a riff on this.
No, we politically incorrect, only two things. So that's great, Dean. Thank you.
Well,
no,
I just never understood learning Blackstone and common law of England cases for months and months and never getting to the practical. What do I do with a case when I have it?
So you're saying when I quoted Jeremy Hobbs and Blackstone in court to Judge Morris, perhaps it could have been slightly more relevant. This is what you're saying, right?
If you did that to Judge Morris, you wouldn't have survived.
True. So I know that's very, very, very true. Exactly right. And I always put this in another legal idol. Absolutely right. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. I wanted, you're talking about the law school, how it resonated with you. Did you feel law school gave you the tools that you needed for later on criminal defense work? Or do you think that was really learned, basically starting point day one, public defender's office?
I don't want to just diss on the law school when I went there, but seeing its evolution over since I've been there, I didn't learn a lot of practical stuff, and the internships were and the clinics were fairly new then, so that was the first practical experience anybody was getting. And now it's changed. Now yes. There's a lot more avenues.
To be fair, it's changed exactly. In fact, the emphasis is on that. Right, the practical experience.
I've noticed the change just teaching at the Public Defender Prosecutor College, which is for young, new prosecutors and public defenders all over the state. They come to the law school here at UF, and for a week it's intensive. They do all kinds of mock trials, motions, hearings, and it's all recorded. So we go over their videos. That has changed, and the talent is so much better now, and people are so much more prepared now as young lawyers than they were then. So unfortunately, most of my knowledge and how to practice law came from the internship at the public defender's office and working with lawyers at the public defender's office. It's another great thing about when you're a young lawyer and you do that. Whether you're on the public defender or prosecutor side, when you start out as a young public defender or prosecutor, people that you normally would never be friends with become lifelong friends because you went through the struggles together. You went through the trenches together. You're
like a family.
You're a perfect example, Layne. I wouldn't be buddies with you if we hadn't gone through all that stuff together.
Well, we have so much in common. We're both Renaissance people, Dean, right? We love history. We love films. We love great literature. Really, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think maybe that you and I clicked, right? Early on. Yeah. I like to think that, I can't thank you enough. I mean, for everything, that you've done for me, for my family. Let me put that as, in there as well. And I know that's what I'm not going to bore my students with all of that, but thank you again. You just talked about some of them, but do you want to mention any other hardships and how you overcame them? You just mentioned, about, and what you're seeing in terms of training and things. Is there any particular hardships that stand out to you where you were just like, boy, I got to get over this, besides Layne, working with Layne, supervising Layne?
Well, I still haven't gotten over that. I still have PTSD from that.
Yeah.
But, fortunately, not being a guy that ever participated in class, always sat in the back row, wasn't the best studier in the world. And so I never thought I would be a public speaker of any sort. Something I never would have conceived of. So for me, going into a courtroom and talking in front of a bunch of strangers, I just never had a second of nervousness about that. And that surprises me.
Wow. And
so that's what made me, immediately realize, I'm comfortable with this. I believe in it. This is a monstrosity of a system and people get lost and it's a bureaucracy. There's a lot of politics, a lot of personal politics. People don't like looking bad and they make decisions simply because they're worried the way it makes them look rather than what's right and what's just. So, some of the things I had to learn early on, and I guess, you're talking about things I had to overcome was, early on, I did challenge every single thing, and sometimes to the detriment probably of my client, without trying every avenue first to get a good result for them. But that was a time when we were overwhelmed. My first caseload, after I was an intern at the public defender's office, I was hired at the public defender's office. And within 3 months, before I even got my bar card, I was in felony. And because
Wow.
that's how few attorneys they had. The pay was so low. My starting salary was $18,000. And so that, and I had so many cases that were serious cases as a young attorney that, I didn't know that there was other ways of getting a good result other than just challenging everything from top to bottom. And I hear that from people that I talk to all the time that are potential clients, and they come in and I want somebody that's going to fight for me every second. It's like, do you even know what that means? Do you know that perhaps this prosecutor may be willing to put you in a deferral program, or which leads to a dismissal without any liability to you, or you don't have really as strong a case as you think you have. So maybe that's not the right tact right now. Maybe making sure you don't go to prison for 30 years needs to be looked at first. So I had overcome the zealousness to go after everything, and there's still time to do that, and I still love doing it. But I have a much more pragmatic approach, and so that was the thing I had to learn. And you just, as you get older, you start to have a little more feel for things, and so I have a much better idea of what I need to fight right off the bat, tooth and nail, and what I need to massage a little bit more. And so that's kind of been the thing that I had to overcome as a lawyer, was to understand the result for your client is the most important thing. And so, and fighting everything from the beginning doesn't always get the best result for your client.
Absolutely.
We do have great prosecutors. We have good judges here, but there can also be pettiness to this.
And if you go in with both guns blazing away, right, you don't know what you're going to hit, right?
Right. That's right. And with all the, and it's really, you learn it now from practical experience of, there are so many minimum mandatories for crimes, guns and prior record, habitual offenders, recent releasees from prison, that the liability is so high that you have to make sure before you go down that road, before the prosecutor says to you, listen, I'm done negotiating with you, we're done, and now your client's looking at 20 years minimum mandatory because they used a gun in a crime. Boy, I wish I had talked to that prosecutor sooner about maybe avoiding all that. So, and I do a lot of student conduct work. I do a lot of Title IX work over at UF. And that was something I had to do too, because coming as a criminal defense lawyer, I got into that because I represent a lot of students, and they would have those kind of same issues at UF. And so I learned how to do those over the last, 15 years. And, when I first went into that, I went guns blazing, and that's a whole different system, and you don't have the same rights and the same due process. It's not a courtroom. There's not many, even if you think your rights have been violated, there's not a lot of avenues to explore after that. So that's kind of taught me too that, is it more important to show how good of a lawyer you are and how good you can argue, or is this 20-year-old's career and future academic career more important with a good result? So that's the one thing I've learned over the years is, my ability to look at a case and be more pragmatic.
Thank you. Very telling. Dean, you're so excellent. I find myself enthralled in the conversation and dialogue. We're going to take a quick break right now so that I can get part one, all modified and adapted, okay, to get it ready. And then we'll return very shortly for part two, if that's okay with you. And we have a little bit more, some other questions that might resonate as well, okay, with our viewers. Thank you again.
I thought I only agreed to part one.
Well, you want that check. We'll talk. Just give me just a bit. We'll be right back.